Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited about my guest today. This is my sister Azzy. Hey. I am so excited honestly to have this guest today. We come a long way. 2007 grad school.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Grad school. That's where we met, right? Oh my
Oh
goodness.
my
In 2 years
God.
it will be 20 years. Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
We are not young anymore, but we thank the Lord. Black don't crack, so
Like, don't break.
anyways, guys, I'm so excited to have the Emmy Award winning producer and author Abimbola Ishola Ayodeji in the studio with me today. Miss Abby, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Adeola. I love you and I appreciate this opportunity because
I
you
love
are
you
that
too.
girl.
I love you too. I love you too. Thank you so much, Abby. And I just want to say real quick that knowing where we both came from, okay, knowing the days of homeworks and the days of being sent out with our video cameras to go and get some kind of news. Don't come back without a story. Knowing
Yeah.
those days of staying late, editing and putting our stories together, doing group works, doing individual assignments, and seeing where we are today. My sister, you're an Emmy Award winner. I say,
Oh my
I'm
And
so
you, my
so
sister,
proud so
have
proud
done
of you. And say that one more time.
I said, and you, my sister, have done a lot. I don't even know where to begin with you. I'm so proud of you.
I'm just trying to be like you. You're my big sister. And so today I'm so happy that we're finally getting to talk about this, your very first novel. And Abby, you outdid yourself with this thing. I just want to say, before I even ask you why you decided to write this story, all those general questions, I just want to say that how did you do it? That you don't even live in Nigeria. You spent maybe like 1 year in Nigeria and you were a teenager at the time. But the way you wrote this book, you took me way back. You took me back home. I could smell the puff puff from reading your book. I could hear I could hear the hawkers on the street, like they were literally calling my name to come and buy gala. I could hear the people loading molue. I could hear molue walking by. I could feel the okada. It was as if I'm on the okada with them and I could feel the wind. Abby, you did it. How did you do all that? That you made it so real.
Well, it's interesting because world building is a big thing in fiction, but it's a bigger thing when you're writing fantasy versus this kind of fiction. This isn't fantasy, this is, you know, regular fiction. But I feel like Lagos and Nigeria as a whole is its own character. When I considered writing this story, I wanted it to appear as its own character because, as we know, Nigeria is a wondrous place. I always say, I use that word wondrous because as a person that is not born and bred there, whenever I'm there, I am just in awe of everything that is happening. It's such an amazing place to soak in what you've seen. So everything that I saw as a teenager, I went to live there when I was 12. My parents sent my sister and I there, and I came back when I was 13. None of that left me. It stayed with me that whole time, and then I had moments of going back to visit. But Nigeria as a whole deserves to be a character in almost any story or book that exists about Nigeria. That's my opinion.
Mm,
So yeah.
wow, you did a really good job. Thank you so much. Now, why did you decide to write this book?
Well, again, when I was in Nigeria, when I was 12 and 13 years old, it was such an amazing experience. Coming from the US, being a student in the US was a lot different from being a student in Nigeria. I had the privilege of studying there, which was also an amazing experience because it was so different from what you experience in school in America. And for me, there was a time when, politically things were really rough while we were there. And my uncle, he's the person that will watch CNN until from start to finish. So we would watch it with him and he would explain things to us about politics. And then also going to school. Some of the students, when I was 12 years old, were discussing the politics at that time. And I was looking around like, this is kind of different because in the US, especially at that time, young people, especially young Black people, didn't really talk about politics because we didn't feel included in it. We didn't feel like it had much effect on our lives. So people don't discuss politics as passionately as they do in Nigeria. Things have changed somewhat, but I was still so impressed by hearing what was going on with Abiola and also being intrigued when I came back. Like, what happened to his story? What happened to him? So I basically kept looking into it. I would ask my parents, what's happening with that story? And as I got older, I was so intrigued by what happened to him. I felt like his story needed to be told. And of course, in my book, his story is a backdrop to another story. But I think that I just tipped the iceberg, and more people should write about what happened for the June 12th election.
I'm glad that you mentioned June 12th because I'm pretty sure you saw what former head of state Babangida said recently about June 12th.
Yes.
Would you like to react to what he said?
Well, I was very shocked because in writing this book, I approached this book as a journalist because that is my, that's my background. As you know, Adeola, we're both journalists by trade.
Yeah.
So, although this is fiction, I approached it that way. I did so much research. I looked into, of course, the politics of that time, the people, what was happening around that time. Even little tidbits about like, what the government was doing with, the private sector versus what the government was actually doing in Nigeria. And it's well documented that Babangida annulled the election and had a whole speech around that. And I actually used part of this.
He was even the one that announced and gave the whole speech.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the New York Times has this. I mean, it's not just Nigerian media. This is documented throughout the world because that election was pivotal. It was a pivotal election in Nigeria, and Nigeria is such an important place because of oil, right? Because Abiola came to America at that time seeking help, after what had happened. So this wasn't just documented in Nigeria, it was documented in a lot of places. One thing I always say about that election is I feel like Obama, who ran on hope, when he first became president, I really think he studied Abiola's election. I could be wrong, but it feels like he did because, we were coming out of the Bush era and people had lost so much hope. Even Republicans were just through with Bush. But here comes Obama with the message of hope and reigniting that in people and making people feel like they could dream again. And that's basically what Abiola did in his election. He united the whole of Nigeria, which is not easy to do. As we know, there are so many ethnic groups. And he was able to tap into, of course, his wife, who, was from the North, being able to speak to people all over the country and ignite people into feeling like they can dream and have a better future and have people come out and vote for him in droves. And he actually won. That was, it was astounding.
And I think of all the things that he said, the only important thing to me is that he finally admitted that Abiola won that election.
Wow.
He
Hmm.
admitted, he said Abiola won that election, but I still think that it's an insult for him to tell us it was annulled by the Abacha-led forces without his permission. Like, hold up,
Yeah.
like, what was that? But I am so happy. Like I told people on my show, if you want to know the truth, forget about what Babangida is saying. Go and read this book.
Go and read
And
it.
I think the most important thing is what you just mentioned about how hopeful Nigerians were during Abiola's time when Abiola was running. That hope is something that you absolutely captured in this book. I think that's the missing piece for a lot of people. They don't understand when we say that he crushed our hope. People were
Mm,
fed up, they were done. Everybody was ready. They were all ready and they all for a change and they all voted for Abiola. People united, even people that did not agree on regular stuff, they all agreed on that one. People
yeah.
marched, people laid down their lives, people were killed.
Hmm.
The riots that broke out and so on. And you captured everything so well in this book while
Thank you.
still telling us a love story. See, how you did that, I still don't know. I still don't know. By the way, I just want to say there's one thing I will never forgive you for. You killed you killed one of my favorite characters. in this book.
Oh my
Auntie
God.
Abby, you killed. I'm not going to say who it is. I won't say whether it's he or it's she. But how dare you kill her? But at that point when that happened, I cried. Like there's no way anybody will read this book and not cry. There's no way
Mm,
you will read this book and not cry. And this person's death in the book really brought back to my memory the realities of so many people in Nigeria, including family members that I have lost that didn't have to die. People that didn't have to die, if not for what we term Nigerian factor.
mm.
Power drunk police officers, it is still happening till today. It is still happening. And then, of course, insecurity and so on. But these power drunk police officers, who are triggered,
Hmm.
it's just so sad to see that it's still happening. So, and knowing that you were a teenager at the time, how did you capture that scene so well? Did you experience something like that when you were there? Did it happen to someone that you knew when you were there, or you went with what you know is still happening now? Or how did you come about that scene?
Well, thank you for that question. What I remember is being in school one day, and I believe it was at the time when, after the election was annulled, and that day was a hot day, where meaning not hot, not the sun being hot, but just hot. Like everyone was really on edge that day, and I remember how it felt in school and how my classmates were debating and talking about it. And then to go home, and as I said, my uncle was always watching the news, and to see what was happening on the news and the riots that broke out. And, you have to understand, again, in America, those things weren't happening at that time. At least I hadn't witnessed anything like that. So it was imprinted on my mind. And then, of course, being able to go back and read about what happened, people were upset. And then learning the history of how many times the military had promised democracy, and the feeling of feeling like it was coming. Oh, it's coming, it's going to happen. And it's not just coming, it's coming with someone who actually cares and actually wants us to hope and dream and have a future. And then for that to be taken away from everyone. So I used the thought of that and how that must have felt for people to basically describe what the streets were like afterwards, the riots. And I don't even know if I want to call it a riot. I think it's like emotionally charged reactions from people that are fed up. And I always wonder, like, what would Nigeria have been if if he was able to be president? What would have
Mm,
been like now? I think it would have been set on a different path. So all of that was what I was thinking about when I was writing, and then also writing the title. People being patient for something that didn't show up. You know.
that makes me wonder, how do you feel after you've written this book? You spent years writing this book, right?
Yeah.
And you wrote about something that happened in the 90s, and now it's 2025. Has Nigeria changed? Do you think people now feel like they've been able to get the kind of government that they want? Or you think everything happening right now may be another book coming out?
Well, I hope for another book. But in terms of how I think people feel now, I don't live in Nigeria, but from what I know from visiting and how it feels, like I'll describe what it felt like once when I visited, maybe 2011. I went out with my cousin. We took the bus places, because I'm the kind of person I don't care. Like I'll get in a bus, I'll get in a motorway, I don't care about that. So we got on a bus. We were like getting off the bus, getting on another bus, and then the feeling of like the traffic and like I don't want to use the word chaos, but somewhat of like the lack of infrastructure started to really hit me. I'm like, oh. So I said to my cousin, I'm like, it feels like when you walk outside, we're all surviving on hope in Nigeria. And he said, yeah, we are. It's all hope. There's no guarantee. So I thought about that, like, how does it feel to live like that every single day? And my cousin, who agreed with me, who lives there or was living there at the time, he doesn't live there anymore, to agree with that sentiment, it made me really feel like things have not changed. If anything, what I do think is that Nigerians are very resilient. Nigerians are very strong willed people, and success has always been a must for Nigerians. So I think the spirit of Nigerians just can't be broken. Like, Nigerians are people that you can't break them, they will figure it out. But at the same time, it shouldn't have to be that way. They should have what they need. People should have what they need to thrive and survive and live decent lives. Not everyone's going to be, dangote, but I mean, come on. People should have the basic necessities of life.
Now, before I ask you about your next book, and I'm rounding up, I just want to say real quick that when I was reading the embassy scene, which is one of my favorite scenes, obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, to see how some people have turned the whole embassy crowd visitation into business. Like, some people are literally, from reading the book, they were literally thriving off of other people's hope or aspiration to get a visa to leave the country. And it was so funny, guys. It's a really funny scene. If you read that part, you will see how people come and do crusade at the embassy. Oh, accept Jesus today. You will see how people will come and sell newspaper, and they will tell you this will be your last newspaper in Nigeria. Buy it. I have prayed over it or whatever. It's very, very, it was very interesting. You really will want to sit
Thank you.
down.
Thank
I
you.
don't know if that is still how it is now, but this was amazing. And people are still so desperate to leave Nigeria. Well, let me not say everybody. There are people that are not into the whole jackpot thing, but a lot of people still want to jackpot. Also, I'm kind of upset the way you left us at the end of this story. Should we expect a sequel? And the book you're working on right now, you said it's not a sequel to this, right?
What I'm working on right now is not a sequel to this. I am working on a story about a Nigerian American girl living in the US and what she has to deal with in a school,
Ah.
majority black school. She's around African Americans, people from the Caribbean. It's an interesting story because I think Nigerians will get to really read what it's like to be a Nigerian American abroad and how there is a bit of an identity crisis that takes place there, because your parents are telling you, you are Americana, you're not really Nigerian, and then when you go to school, people are like, you're not like us.
You're African.
You're African.
It's like I know exactly what you mean. You don't fully belong. You don't feel like you fully belong here, and you
Yes.
don't feel like you fully belong back home. Even me that wasn't born here, I feel like that right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm here, but they will tell me I have an accent, this, that. I'm African. My name is African. Every time I'm on the phone with anyone that I need to give my name, I always have to spell it. I don't even wait
Mm.
for them to tell me anymore. Adeo, Adeo. It's second nature now. And then I go home and I'm like, how can you not complain about things like this? How can you guys be okay with things like this? And they look at me like, Shebi, you used to live here too.
Exactly.
What's such a big deal? Why are you complaining about the road? What's your problem? It's just,
Mhm.
and I just feel like, okay, I'm neither here nor there.
Yeah, but honestly, Adeola, your children, they're going to feel it even more because they know they have two Nigerian parents that speak Yoruba, that are very much cultured, that love the country, want to see a better country, but they're here, right? And they're like, wait a minute, I have to fit in here. I have to fit in this school, but people can sniff me out and know that I'm not exactly like them, and they put me over in this box. So what does that mean for me in my formative years? So I think when you're like born and bred in the United States and you have very Nigerian parents, it's you go through this phase of trying to figure out what to be. Imagine trying to figure out, what am I? What do I become? As my persona, my personality, my how do I walk through this world? You know, so I think I experienced that. I know lots of other people have too. We have people that, you know, totally become African American. Some people become people that are like leaning more towards white people. And then there are people that are somewhere in the middle. I definitely like to honor being Nigerian American, being a Nigerian that was bred in America, born and bred in America. So, and it's also interesting now because, you know, African Americans and Africans, it feels like there's this weird war online about, you know, who's this, who's better. You know, you guys say we don't have culture, but you take from us. And it's really disheartening because you would think by now we would figure out like that thread that we have, that thing that connects us. It's more powerful than anything. And who really created this mess of division? Who created the division? We know who created the
And
division.
that's one of the things, that's one of the effects of people having to leave home. This whole Japa syndrome has separated a lot of families because we don't have good government. If things are working well back home, so many of us, we have no business being here. Like, what are we doing here? If you just have the basic amenities and the government is doing what it's supposed to and there is freedom of expression, I would do way better living in Nigeria. And I'm not a fan of the snow. My husband is, but I'm not. So I think, and you know, it worries me based on what you said that my children, they don't know their cousins, they don't know their extended family. You have to plan a trip. You spend thousands of dollars to go, just spend a few weeks, you're back. They're not really getting the whole experience, you know. But the one thing that we do is we make sure that they can speak Yoruba so that when they go home, at least that gives them some kind of connection. Their cousins, their aunties, their, you know, so the fact that they can speak Yoruba, if they're saying anything about them, they know. They understand and they will say it back to you in Yoruba. So that's the
Uh,
one thing
I,
that
I
that
love that you're doing that. I love that you're doing that. I actually just told my daughter today you have to learn Yoruba on Duolingo. Do you know Duolingo, the app? So she has,
yeah.
she's learning Spanish. And I'm like, you got to do the Yoruba part too. Because Adeola has inspired me. You have inspired.
Woo! It's very important, my sister. Very, very important. You know, when Zion was little, we used to talk about her in Yoruba, but now we cannot talk about her.
Oh, that's so.
She understands everything. If we say to each other, if we say to each other that we're going somewhere or something, she goes and puts on her shoes. She's like, Mufelo.
Oh,
Like she already knows. Like you can't
oh
even.
my God.
All right, thank you so much for joining me today. We look forward to that book, and whenever it's out, just let me know so that I can announce to the people. By the way, Liz did an amazing job with the Audible version because I love that too. I got this, and I also got the Audible version. That was mesmerizing. She did a wonderful job with her Nigerian accent. It made it feel more real.
Mhm.
But don't forget, some of us are in love with this book. We need a sequel. We need Auntie Patience to become this character that people would have to, you know, answer to, reckon with, and she would have to avenge all the people that were wronged. So keep
Mm.
us in mind.
You're giving me
We have a
ideas.
yes. For those that may be wondering, you can buy her book is on Amazon. This book is on Amazon. It's actually available anywhere books are sold, right?
Hmm.
So it's on Amazon, but you can also get the physical copy. And if you drive a lot, just buy the Audible version and listen to it while you're driving or while you're cooking or something. You would love it. You'll really love it. All right, Miss Abby Ishola Ayodeji, let me allow you to enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for coming on the show. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Adiola. Love you.
I love you too. Bye.
Your family's reaction to the book?
My mom, I keep saying she's selling more books than Barnes and Noble. She's calling everybody, and she's like, "I'll buy it. I'll pay for it, and you just pay me back."
Oh, that is great.
She read it in 2 days, so I'm that alone is enough for me.